Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Highlands Wrap Dress Sewalong. Today I'll be showing you how to sew the button tabs, the waist ties, and the darts of this design. Are you ready? Let's go! Now let's grab our button tabs. There should be 4 little rectangles. You'll want to place 2 of them right sides together and starting at one long edge, sew around 3 sides of the tab with a 3/8" seam allowance. Clip the corners when you're finished, but be careful not to snip through the stitching line. Then turn the tab right side out using a point turner to get sharp corners and press well. Now just repeat this for the other button tab. At this point you can edge stitch your button tab with a 1/8" seam allowance if you prefer around the 3 sewn edges of the button tab. I unfortunately did not catch this on camera, but you can see here that I've done that. And now we'll sew the buttonholes onto the button tabs. The instructions have you sew a button tab centered 1 inch from the short end of the tab, but I found that 2 buttonholes gives even more flexibility with the waist circumference if your body tends to fluctuate there. So I'm sewing 2 buttonholes about 3/4 inch apart, centered on the button tabs. Now just repeat these steps for the opposite button tab. Okay, we'll set aside our button tabs and move on to our waist ties. It's the same process here. With right sides together, you'll sew 3 edges of the waist tie, pivoting at the corners. Clip the corners, removing some of the seam allowance around the sharpest point of the waist tie. Now turn the waist ties right side out. I'm using a nifty tool called the Fast Turn Fabric Turner, which I'll link below. It makes super quick work of this tedious task. Use a point turner to turn your points out. And press the tie well. Now you can edge stitch your waist ties with a 1/8" seam allowance, but I prefer to leave the top stitching off. And repeat these steps for the opposite waist tie. Last step for today will be sewing the darts. There are 4 darts that need to be sewn, 2 in the back bodice and 1 in each front bodice. To prepare my darts for sewing, I match the dart leg notches and fold the fabric so that the dart point aligns with the fabric fold. I place a pin to keep the dart legs aligned and another pin at the dart point. Then I sew along my chalk line, making sure my stitch runs right off the fabric where my pin is placed at the dart point. But I don't trim my threads here. Instead, I leave long thread tails. And I will repeat these steps for the other 3 darts. Once all my darts are sewn, I'll press the back darts towards the center back and the bust darts down. And I tie those thread tails into a double knot and trim the threads. Make sure you repeat these steps for the front bodice darts as well. And that's it for part 2, folks. In part 3 of the sew along, we'll assemble the back of the dress and sew the shoulder seams.